continued viewership. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? We love knowing our global reach. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Foundation. Tom Mitchell had built his life on three principles: loyalty, hard work, and family. At 42, he owned Mitchell Construction, a mid-sized company that had weathered 3 recessions through sheer determination and quality craftsmanship. His calloused hands told the story of a man who'd started swinging hammers at 16 and never stopped building. The house on Maple Street was his crown jewel, a custom-built colonial he'd constructed for his family 12 years ago. Every beam, every joint, every detail reflected his perfectionist nature. It was here that he'd raised his son, Tyler, now 6 years old, with his grandfather's mischievous green eyes and his father's stubborn streak. Tom's wife, Bridget, had been the town's real estate queen when they met 15 years ago. Stunning, ambitious, and sharp as a blade, she closed more deals than any agent in the county. Her blonde hair and practiced smile could sell ice to Eskimos, but lately, that smile seemed reserved for everyone except her husband. Tyler burst through the front door that Tuesday afternoon, his backpack flying behind him like a cape. Dad! Grandpa Frank says we can build a real tree house this weekend." Tom's father, Frank Mitchell, followed behind with the measured pace of a 70-year-old carpenter who'd taught his son everything about building. "The boy's been pestering me for weeks about that old oak in your backyard. Figure it's time to teach him proper woodworking." Bridget looked up from her phone, where she'd been typing furiously for the past hour. "A treehouse? In our backyard? Tom, that tree is visible from the kitchen window. I don't want some amateur construction project ruining the view." "It won't be amateur," Frank said quietly, his weathered face hardening. "I've been building things since before you were born, girl." "I didn't mean—" Bridget started, but Tom cut her off. "It'll be perfect, Bridge. Dad and Tyler need a project together, and Tyler's been asking for months." That weekend, 3 generations of Mitchell men worked side by side. Frank showed Tyler how to measure twice and cut once, while Tom handled the heavier construction. They built a masterpiece, not some cobbled-together clubhouse, but a proper structure with real windows, a shingled roof, and a rope ladder that Tyler had insisted on. "This is the best day ever," Tyler announced from his new perch, 15 feet up in the ancient oak. Tom smiled, watching his father ruffle Tyler's hair. These moments were what mattered. Not Bridget's increasingly late nights at client meetings, not her sudden interest in yoga classes that seemed to run well past 9 p.m., and definitely not the way she'd been guarding her phone like state secrets. But that night, as they sat on the back porch admiring their work, Bridget remained silent. Her jaw was set in that particular way that meant trouble was brewing. Chapter 2. The Destruction. Tom woke to the sound of chainsaws. The digital clock glowed 7:23 a.m., and outside their bedroom window, the mechanical roar of destruction filled the morning air. He stumbled to the window and felt his world tilt sideways. The treehouse, 3 days of careful craftsmanship, his father's expertise, his son's pure joy, lay in pieces around the base of the oak tree. 2 men in orange vests were methodically cutting the beautiful structure into chunks, while a third loaded the debris into a truck. "What the hell?" Tom grabbed his jeans and ran downstairs, but Bridget was already in the kitchen, fully dressed and holding a steaming coffee mug like she'd been up for hours. Tyler stood at the sliding glass door in his pajamas, tears streaming down his face. "Dad, they're breaking my treehouse." Tom burst through the door. Hey, stop cutting." The man with the chainsaw shut it off and pulled back his safety mask. "Sorry, sir. We got our orders from the lady of the house." "Safety violation," she said, blocking sight lines to the property. "I'm the owner of this property," Tom said, his voice deadly quiet. "Who hired you?" "Like I said, the lady. I hired them." Bridget had followed him outside, her chin lifted defiantly. "It was unsafe and blocked our view. I made the call." Tom stared at his wife, trying to process what he was hearing. "You destroyed our son's treehouse while we were sleeping. Tyler will get over it. And your father's little project was blocking the kitchen window. Do you know how that affects property value?" Tyler's sobs grew louder. Frank appeared at the back gate, having heard the commotion from his apartment above Tom's workshop. What in God's name? Frank surveyed the destruction, his face going white, then red. Bridget, you had no right. I had every right. This is my house too, and I won't have some ramshackle. Ramshackle? Frank's voice was dangerously quiet. I've been building for 50 years, girl. That tree house was solid as any structure on this property. Well, now it's gone, Bridget said flatly. And Tyler needs to learn that the world doesn't revolve around his little whims. Tom stood frozen, watching his son cry over the splintered remains of 3 perfect days. Something inside him snapped, not into rage, but into crystal clarity. This wasn't about a treehouse. This was about respect, about family, about the systematic dismantling of everything he'd built. And as he watched Bridget check her phone again, he realized this was probably about much more than he'd been willing to admit. Get off my property, he told the work crew. Now. But we're not finished. Now. As the trucks pulled away, Tom knelt beside his son. We'll build another one, buddy. Even better. But Tyler just shook his head. Mom will just cut it down again. Tom looked at his father, then at his wife, who was already heading back inside. No, he said quietly. She won't. Chapter 3. The Discovery. Tom didn't say a word about the treehouse for the rest of the day. He helped Tyler gather some unbroken pieces for keepsakes, had lunch with Frank, and went about his normal routine. But inside, something had shifted permanently. That evening, as Bridget prepared for another client dinner, Tom made a decision. I'll be late tonight, too, he announced. Gotta check on the Henderson project. Bridget barely looked up from her mirror. Fine. Tyler's already eaten. Tom kissed his son goodnight and waited. At 7:30, Bridget left in her silver BMW. At 8 o'clock, Tom got in his truck. He'd built half the houses in this town. He knew every street, every back road, every parking lot. Following Bridget was easier than he'd expected. The Silver Pine restaurant was exactly the kind of upscale place Bridget loved. Dim lighting, expensive wine, and an atmosphere that screamed affair to anyone with eyes. Tom parked across the street and waited. At 8:45, a black Mercedes pulled up. Tom recognized the driver immediately. Derek Hoffman, the hotshot developer who'd been trying to buy out local contractors for the past 2 years. Slick suit, perfect teeth, and the kind of arrogance that came from inherited money. Tom watched through the restaurant's floor-to-ceiling windows as Bridget and Derek shared intimate conversation, held hands across the table, and acted like lovers who'd been together for months. His phone buzzed. A text from Bridget. Client dinner running late. Don't wait up. Tom sat in his truck for another hour, watching his wife laugh at another man's jokes, touch his face tenderly, and kiss him goodbye in the parking lot. He followed Derek's Mercedes to the Grandview Hotel, the most expensive place in town. He watched them disappear into the elevator together. Tom drove home in silence, his mind working through calculations. Not emotional calculations, those were done. Now he was thinking like the contractor he'd always been, planning, measuring, building something that would last. Tyler was asleep when he got home. Tom stood in his son's doorway for a long time, thinking about treehouses and trust and the kinds of lessons that shaped a man's character. Then he went to his study and began making calls. The first was to Rick Donovan, his lawyer and oldest friend. The second was to Marcus Webb, a private investigator who'd done work for several of Tom's clients during messy divorces. The third was to his brother Danny, who lived 2 towns over and owed Tom more favors than he could count. By midnight, Tom had a plan. It wasn't about getting even, it was about total reconstruction. Demolition first, then building something better from the ground up. Some structures could be repaired. Others needed to be torn down completely. Tom had learned to tell the difference. Chapter 4. The Blueprint. 3 weeks later, Tom's plan was taking shape like the foundation of a skyscraper. Invisible to most, but absolutely crucial to everything that would follow. Derek Hoffman had a problem he didn't know about yet. His development company, Hoffman Estates, had been cutting corners on environmental permits for their latest project, a luxury condo complex on the old Miller farm. Tom had built municipal relationships over 20 years, and a few quiet conversations with the right people had revealed that Derek's permits were based on fraudulent soil tests. Marcus Webb had provided the documentation. Rick Donovan had confirmed that when the violations came to light, Derek would face not just hefty fines, but potential criminal charges for environmental fraud. But Tom wasn't ready to pull that trigger yet. That was his nuclear option. Phase 1 was much more personal. Tom had purchased something very specific from Danny 2 towns over. A complete security system, industrial grade, with cameras smaller than golf balls and recording equipment that could capture conversations from 50 yards away. Friday night, while Bridget was at another client dinner and Tyler was at his friend Jake's sleepover, Tom installed his surveillance network. Not just in his house, he was a contractor, after all. He had legitimate reasons to be on construction sites all over town, including the office building where Derek Hoffman Estates was headquartered. By Sunday evening, Tom had enough audio and video evidence to destroy both their reputations and their careers. But he still wasn't ready. Monday morning brought the first test of his patience. "Tom, we need to talk," Bridget announced over breakfast, her voice carrying that fake concern she used when she wanted something. "About what?" "Tyler's behavior. Ever since that treehouse incident, he's been disrespectful and moody. I think he needs counseling." Tom looked at his son, who was quietly eating cereal and trying to become invisible. Tyler hadn't been moody. He'd been heartbroken and confused. But in Bridget's world, inconvenient emotions were problems to be solved, preferably by someone else. "He's 6 years old, Bridge. His treehouse got destroyed. He's allowed to be upset. He needs to learn that life doesn't always go his way. And frankly, I think your father's influence isn't helping. All that stubborn, old-fashioned nonsense about craftsmanship and tradition." Tom set down his coffee mug very carefully. "What are you suggesting?" "Maybe Frank shouldn't spend so much time with Tyler. At least until Tyler learns to accept disappointment better." The room went dead silent. Tyler's spoon stopped halfway to his mouth. "You want to cut Tyler off from his grandfather," Tom said slowly, "because he was sad that you destroyed something they built together. I want Tyler to develop emotional resilience instead of dwelling on." "Get out." Bridget blinked. "Excuse me. Get out of this kitchen. Get out of my sight before I say something I can't take back." For the first time in months, Bridget looked genuinely surprised. Tom had never spoken to her like that before. He'd always been the peacekeeper, the calm one, the man who found compromise. That man was gone. After Bridget left for work, Tom knelt beside Tyler's chair. "You okay, buddy?" Tyler nodded, but his eyes were too serious for a 6-year-old. "Are you and Mom getting divorced?" The question hit Tom like a sledgehammer. Kids saw everything, understood more than adults wanted to believe. "I don't know yet," Tom said honestly. "But whatever happens, you'll always have me and Grandpa Frank. That will never change. Promise." "Promise." That afternoon, Tom made another call. This one to Judge Patricia Hernandez, an old family friend who'd known Tom since he was Tyler's age. "Patty, I need advice about custody laws." Chapter 5, The Framework. Derek Hoffman was nervous. Tom could tell from the surveillance footage Marcus had pulled from the office building cameras. Derek had been checking his phone obsessively, leaving work early, and having hushed conversations with his business partner about timeline issues on the Miller Farm project. Someone had been asking questions about their permits. Derek didn't know who, but he was smart enough to be worried. Good. Tom's plan was working like a well-engineered machine. Every piece supported the others, and every move created pressure in exactly the right places. The pressure on Bridget was more subtle, but just as effective. Tom had stopped arguing with her. He'd stopped trying to save their marriage. He'd become politely distant, like a contractor dealing with a difficult client who wasn't worth the hassle. She hated it. "You've been strange lately," she said Thursday night as they stood in their kitchen, the space feeling like a DMZ between two armies. "Have I? Cold. Distant. Like you're not even here." Tom continued cleaning dishes, his movements mechanical and efficient. "I'm here. Are you?" Bridget stepped closer, using the voice that used to work on him, soft, vulnerable, designed to make him feel like the bad guy for being upset. "Because it feels like you've been pulling away ever since that silly treehouse thing." The treehouse wasn't silly to Tyler. Tyler is 6. He'll forget about it in a month. Tom turned to face her, his expression completely neutral. Will he? Something in his tone made Bridget step back. For 15 years, she'd been able to read Tom like an open book. Now she was looking at a stranger. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Just wondering what else Tyler might remember when he gets older. Bridget's face went pale, then flushed red. If you have something to say to me, Tom, just say it. I don't have anything to say, Bridge. Actions speak louder than words, right? That's what you taught Tyler when you had his treehouse cut down. Tom hung up the dish towel and walked toward the door. Where are you going? To check on a job site. It was technically true. Tom was checking on Derek Hoffman's office building, where Marcus had installed additional surveillance equipment that afternoon. By tomorrow, they'd have enough evidence of environmental fraud to bury Derek's company permanently. But Tom still wasn't ready to use it. He was building something bigger. Friday afternoon, Frank showed up at Tom's office with news that changed everything. Tyler's asking questions, the old man said, settling into the chair across from Tom's desk. What kind of questions? About why his mother doesn't like the things we build together. About why she gets angry when he talks about woodworking. About whether she loves him. Tom felt something cold settle in his chest. What did you tell him? The truth. That some people don't understand the value of making things with your hands. That some people care more about how things look than how they feel. Frank paused. But he's 6, Tommy. He started to think it's his fault. That night, Tom found Tyler in his room, sitting by the window that used to look out at his treehouse. Hey, buddy. Grandpa Frank says you've been asking some big questions. Tyler shrugged, not turning around. Mom doesn't like me very much, does she? The question hit Tom like a physical blow. Why would you think that? She breaks my things. She doesn't want me to spend time with Grandpa. She gets mad when I'm sad. Tyler finally looked at his father. Did I do something wrong? Tom sat on the bed and pulled his son close. No, Tyler, you didn't do anything wrong. Sometimes adults make bad choices, and sometimes those choices hurt people who don't deserve it. Like when Mom cut down my treehouse. Like when Mom cut down your treehouse. They sat in silence for a while, watching the empty space where Tyler's dreams used to hang in the branches of the old oak. Dad, yeah. When you build a new treehouse, can we make it somewhere Mom can't find it? Tom closed his eyes, feeling the last of his restraint crumble. Yeah, buddy, we can do that. That night, Tom made 2 more calls. The first was to Rick Donovan. Rick, I want you to file divorce papers. Full custody. I'm done. The second was to Marcus Webb. Marcus, tomorrow morning, I want you to deliver everything we have on Derek Hoffman to the Environmental Protection Agency, the county prosecutor, and the local newspaper. All of it. You sure, Tom? Once we do this, there's no going back. Tom looked out his window at the empty oak tree, thinking about his son's broken heart and his father's wounded pride. There's already no going back. Chapter 6, The Execution. Saturday morning arrived gray and cold, matching Tom's mood perfectly. Bridget had left early for a showing that Tom knew was actually another hotel rendezvous with Derek. She'd be gone for hours, giving Tom time for the most important conversation of his life. Tyler sat at the kitchen table, working on a model airplane Frank had brought him, something to keep his hands busy while his heart healed. Tyler, we need to talk about some grown-up stuff. His son looked up with those serious green eyes that had seen too much lately. Are you and Mom getting divorced? Yes. Tom had decided on complete honesty. Tyler deserved that much. Is it because of my treehouse? No, buddy. It's because your mom and I want different things now, and we can't make each other happy anymore. Tyler processed this with the scary intelligence of a child who'd been watching adults carefully. Where will I live? With me and Grandpa Frank. In this house. Nothing else has to change for you. What about Mom? Tom chose his words carefully. Your mom is going to go live somewhere else. You'll still see her sometimes, but this will be your home. Tyler nodded slowly. Will she be mad? Probably. But that's not your job to worry about. That's mine. At exactly 10:47 a.m., Tom's phone rang. Derek Hoffman's name appeared on the caller ID. Tom answered on the 4th ring. Mitchell Construction. Tom, it's Derek. We need to talk. Now. About what? You know damn well about what. The EPA was in my office an hour ago with search warrants. Someone's been feeding them information about the Miller Farm project. Tom kept his voice neutral. That's unfortunate. Cut the shit, Tom. I know it was you. I'm not sure what you're talking about, Derek. The hell you don't. You think I don't know about your little surveillance games? You think I don't know you've been following Bridget? Tom smiled for the first time in weeks. Derek was panicking, making mistakes, admitting things he shouldn't admit. Derek, if you're calling to confess to environmental fraud, you should probably be talking to your lawyer instead of me. Listen to me very carefully, you small-town piece of garbage. If you don't back off, I'll destroy you. I have connections you can't imagine. I can ruin your business, take your house, make sure you never work in construction again. Are you threatening me, Derek? I'm promising you. Tom looked at Tyler, who was pretending to focus on his model, but clearly listening to every word. Here's my promise, Derek. By tonight, everyone in this town will know exactly what kind of man you are. Your business is finished. Your reputation is gone. And your relationship with my wife is about to become very expensive for both of you. Tom hung up and immediately called Marcus. Execute Phase 2. Phase 2 was beautiful in its simplicity. While Derek dealt with federal investigators and environmental lawyers, Bridget would be dealing with a different kind of exposure. Marcus had compiled everything. Photos of Derek and Bridget entering hotels, audio recordings of their intimate conversations, financial records showing Derek had been paying for Bridget's client dinners and shopping trips. By noon, copies would be delivered to Bridget's real estate office, Derek's business partners, and select members of their social circle. The country club crowd that treated reputation like currency. But Tom's masterpiece was simpler and more devastating than any surveillance footage. At 1:15 p.m., while Tyler was napping, Tom drove to the cemetery where his mother was buried. He stood at Margaret Mitchell's grave for 20 minutes, talking to her the way he had as a boy when life got complicated. I'm about to do something you might not approve of, Mom, but I think you'd understand why. Then he drove to the flower shop on Main Street and bought 24 white roses, Bridget's favorite. At 2:30, he arrived at the Grandview Hotel. The desk clerk, a young woman named Amy whose father had built her family's house, smiled when she saw Tom. Mr. Mitchell, how can I help you? I need to surprise my wife. She's here with a client, and I wanted to send these up to her room. Amy's expression faltered slightly. She'd worked at the hotel long enough to recognize the setup, but Tom's reputation in town was sterling. If Tom Mitchell said his wife was conducting business, then that's what was happening. Of course. What room? I'm not sure. Her client's name is Derek Hoffman. Amy checked her computer. Room 412. Should I call up first? No, I want it to be a surprise. Could you take them up yourself? Tell her they're from her loving husband. Tom handed Amy a card with the flowers. On it, he'd written, "Thank you for showing me who you really are." Tom. He left the hotel and drove to his father's apartment, where Tyler was now awake and building a new model with Frank. At 3:45, Tom's phone exploded with calls and texts from Bridget. He didn't answer any of them. At 4:20, she came home. Chapter 7. The Confrontation. Bridget stormed through the front door like a hurricane, her face flushed with rage and panic. Tom was sitting calmly at the kitchen table, reading blueprints for a new project, while Tyler played in the living room. How dare you? She screamed, waving the white roses like weapons. How dare you humiliate me like that? Tom looked up from his blueprints with mild interest. Did you like the flowers? You son of a bitch. You had that little hotel clerk bring these to Derek's room. You made her think. I made her think what, Bridge? That a husband was sending flowers to his wife. Bridget's mouth opened and closed like a fish. She'd walked directly into the trap, and they both knew it. You're spying on me. I'm protecting my family. Your family? You destroyed our marriage. Tom stood slowly, his full 6'2" frame towering over Bridget's petite figure. For the first time in their relationship, he looked genuinely intimidating. I destroyed our marriage. I cut down Tyler's treehouse. I've been cheating for months. I've been stealing from our joint accounts to pay for hotel rooms with another man. Bridget went white. You don't know anything about. I know everything, Bridge. Every hotel, every lie, every dollar you've spent, every conversation you've had, everything. Tom reached into his pocket and placed a USB drive on the table between them. Photos, audio recordings, Financial records. Enough evidence to ensure I get full custody and you get nothing in the divorce. Bridget stared at the drive like it was a live grenade. You can't. Tom, we can work this out. Derek doesn't mean anything to me. It was just. Stop. Tom's voice cut through her words like a blade. Just stop lying. It's over. Tom, please. Think about Tyler. Think about our family. I am thinking about Tyler. That's why you're leaving. Bridget's desperation shifted to fury. You think you can just throw me out? This is my house too. I have rights. You had rights. You gave them up when you chose Derek over your family. I'll fight you. I'll take everything you have. Tom smiled, and the expression was colder than anything Bridget had ever seen from him. You'll try, but here's what's going to happen. You're going to pack your things and leave. Tonight, you're going to sign whatever papers Rick puts in front of you, and you're going to disappear from Tyler's life until you've figured out how to be a decent human being. You can't keep me from my son. Watch me. Tyler appeared in the doorway, drawn by the shouting. He looked small and scared, clutching his model airplane. Tom's expression immediately softened. Hey, buddy, why don't you go upstairs and play in your room for a while? The grown-ups need to finish talking. Tyler looked at his mother, then back at his father. Is Mom leaving? The question hung in the air like smoke from a fire. Bridget knelt down, trying to summon her practiced maternal voice. Tyler, sweetie, Mommy just needs to go away for a little while, too. Are you coming back? Tyler interrupted. Bridget opened her mouth, but no words came out. How do you explain to a 6-year-old that you've chosen a new life that doesn't include him? Yes, baby. Mommy will come back. Tyler looked at his father. Tom's expression told him everything he needed to know. No, she won't, Tyler said matter-of-factly. She doesn't like it here anymore. Then he turned and walked upstairs with the devastating honesty that only children possess. Bridget stared after him, something like regret flickering across her face. He hates me. He doesn't hate you, Tom said quietly. He just understands you better than you think. Bridget was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was smaller, more genuine than it had been in months. I never meant for it to happen like this. Yes, you did. You just thought you'd never get caught. She nodded slowly, accepting the truth of it. What happens now? Now you pack your things and leave. Derek can deal with his environmental fraud charges and explain to his wife why their marriage is over. And Tyler and I will build a new treehouse. Tom, don't. Whatever you're about to say, don't. There's nothing left to say. Bridget looked around the kitchen Tom had built in the house Tom had designed, filled with the life they'd created together. I really did love you once, she whispered. I know, Tom said. That's what made this so hard to watch. Chapter 8, The Aftermath. 3 hours later, Bridget was gone. She'd packed 2 suitcases and left behind 15 years of marriage like she was checking out a hotel. Tyler had watched from his bedroom window as she loaded her BMW, and Tom had watched Tyler, memorizing every expression on his son's face. Is she really not coming back? Tyler asked as they stood together in the now-quiet kitchen. Not to live here, no. Good, Tyler said, and the finality in his voice broke Tom's heart and mended it at the same time. Frank appeared at the back door, having seen Bridget's departure from his apartment window. How's the boy? He asked quietly. Stronger than I expected, Tom replied, watching Tyler return to his model airplane with focused determination. Stronger than he should have to be at 6. The next morning brought news that made Tom's revenge complete. Derek Hoffman's company had been shut down by federal authorities. The environmental fraud charges were just the beginning. Investigators had found evidence of tax evasion, permit violations, and safety violations spanning 5 years. Derek was looking at serious prison time. More importantly, Derek's wife had filed for divorce and frozen all their joint assets. The man who'd thought he could steal Tom's family was about to lose everything he'd built. Tom felt no satisfaction from Derek's destruction. It had been necessary, but it was just demolition. The real work was what came next. Monday morning, Tom called a meeting with his foreman, Bobby Martinez, and his office manager, Carol Singh. I'm scaling back operations for a while, he announced. I want to focus on smaller projects, residential work, things that matter to families. Bobby and Carol exchanged glances. Tom's company had been growing steadily, taking on bigger commercial projects. This seemed like a step backward. Boss, the Johnson warehouse project alone could set us up for the next 2 years, Bobby said. It would mean 60-hour weeks and missed dinners with Tyler. Cancel it. From now on, we work reasonable hours and we work on projects that build communities, not just buildings. Carol nodded approvingly. She'd been with Tom for 8 years and had watched him miss too many of Tyler's school events. What about the Miller Farm cleanup? She asked. We'll bid on it. Clean up Derek's mess and turn it into something useful. Maybe a park. That afternoon, Tom picked Tyler up from school personally, something he hadn't done in months. Dad, why are you here? Tyler asked, confused. I take the bus. Not anymore. From now on, I pick you up every day. They drove home in comfortable silence, Tyler chattering about his day while Tom listened to every word. These were the moments he'd been missing while his marriage crumbled, the small, daily victories and defeats that shaped a child's world. Dad, yeah, buddy. Can we start building the new tree house this weekend? Tom smiled. Absolutely. But this time, we're building it in Grandpa Frank's backyard. No one can touch it there. We'll be as good as the first one. Better. It'll be stronger and it'll last longer. And most importantly, it'll be built by people who understand what it means. That evening, Tom's phone rang. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize. Hello. Tom? It's Bridget. Tom's expression hardened. What do you want? I wanted to see how Tyler was doing. Tyler's fine. He's adjusting. Can I talk to him? Tom looked toward the living room, where Tyler was building a Lego castle with the kind of focused intensity he brought to all his projects. No. Tom, please. He's my son, too. You made your choice, Bridge. You chose Derek over Tyler. You chose your reputation over your family. You chose everything except being a mother. I made mistakes. You made choices. And choices have consequences. I'm staying at my sister's in Portland. I'm going to get counseling. I want to be better. Good for you. But you don't get to use Tyler as motivation for your self-improvement. When you've actually changed, if you actually change, we'll talk about supervised visits. Supervised visits? Tom, that's what you get when you abandon your child. Tom hung up and deleted the number. Later that night, as he tucked Tyler into bed, his son asked the question Tom had been dreading. Dad, did Mom leave because of me? Tom sat on the edge of the bed and looked directly into his son's eyes. No, Tyler. Mom left because she forgot what was important. She forgot that family means taking care of each other, even when it's hard. She forgot that love isn't just a feeling. It's a choice you make every day. Will you ever forget? Never. Not ever. Promise. Promise. As Tom turned off the light, Tyler's voice came through the darkness. Dad, I'm glad she's gone. Tom closed his eyes, feeling the weight of his son's honesty. I know, buddy. Me too. Chapter 9. The New Foundation. 6 months later, Tom stood in Frank's backyard, admiring the masterpiece they'd created together. The new treehouse wasn't just a structure, it was a statement. Bigger than the first one, built with military precision and designed to last for generations. Tyler scrambled up the rope ladder with the confidence of a natural climber, followed by his 2 best friends from school. The sound of children's laughter filled the space where anger and betrayal had once lived. It's perfect, Dad. Tyler called down from the platform. Can we sleep up here tonight? We'll see, Tom replied, but he was already planning the camping trip they'd have in Tyler's aerial fortress. Frank joined him at the base of a tree, both men admiring their work. You did good, son, Frank said quietly. With the treehouse and with everything else. I had a good teacher. I'm not talking about carpentry. Tom understood. Frank was talking about the hardest lesson he'd ever learned. Sometimes you have to tear things down completely before you can build something better. Tom's phone buzzed with a text message. For a moment, his chest tightened. Old habits from the months of Bridget's manipulation. But the message was from Carol at the office. Johnson called again. Still wants us to bid on the warehouse project. Triple the original offer. Tom deleted the message without responding. Some opportunities weren't worth the cost. Dad, come up here, Tyler shouted. I want to show you something. Tom climbed the ladder and found Tyler standing at the treehouse's main window, pointing toward the horizon. Look, you can see everything from here. The whole town. Tom looked out across the landscape he'd helped build over 20 years. Houses he'd constructed, families he'd sheltered, communities he'd strengthened one project at a time. What do you see, buddy? Tyler was quiet for a moment, thinking with the seriousness that had become his trademark. I see home, he said finally. Real home. Tom understood exactly what his son meant. Not the house where they slept, but the life they'd built together from the wreckage of betrayal. The daily choices to support each other, to be honest with each other, to never let anyone destroy what they'd created again. Yeah, Tom said, putting his arm around Tyler's shoulders. Me too. That evening, after Tyler's friends had gone home and the boy himself had fallen asleep, Tom and Frank sat on the back porch, sharing a beer and watching the treehouse silhouetted against the stars. Any regrets? Frank asked. Tom considered the question seriously. Bridget was living in Portland, working a small real estate office, and dating a man who didn't know about her past. Derek was serving 18 months in federal prison and would emerge to find his professional reputation permanently destroyed. Tom's marriage was over, his family was smaller, and his life was completely different than it had been a year ago. No, he said finally. No regrets. Not even about Bridget, especially not about Bridget. She showed me who she really was. I just wish I'd listened sooner. And Tyler? Tom smiled, thinking about his son's resilience, his wisdom, his uncomplicated love. Tyler's going to be fine. Better than fine. He's learning early that some people will disappoint you, but the ones who matter will always have your back. Like his old man. Like his old man. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, two generations of builders who understood that the strongest foundations were built on trust, loyalty, and a willingness to defend what mattered most. As Tom headed inside to check on Tyler one last time, Frank called after him. Tommy, yeah, Dad? Your mother would be proud. Tom looked back at the treehouse, solid and permanent against the night sky, then at his father's weathered face, lined with decades of hard work and honest living. Yeah, he said quietly. I think she would be. Upstairs, Tyler was sleeping peacefully, his model airplanes arranged carefully on the dresser and his construction toys organized with military precision. On his nightstand sat a framed photo of the three Mitchell men standing beside their completed treehouse, all of them grinning like they'd just conquered the world. In a way, they had. Tom straightened Tyler's blankets and whispered the same words he'd said every night for 6 months. Sleep tight, buddy. Tomorrow we'll build something new. Outside, the treehouse stood guard over their small piece of the world, strong enough to weather any storm that might come. Because it had been built by men who understood the difference between things that could be broken and things that were meant to last forever. And Tom Mitchell. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.